You are being sold a fantasy about money, and it is costing you your life. The uncomfortable truth is this: the fastest way to get rich is not working harder. It is changing the rules so other people pay you to do the work you are not doing. And here is the part nobody wants to say out loud. Most people never fail because they are lazy. They fail because the system quietly makes sure they stay employees forever, even when they think they are building something of their own. In 2026, with AI replacing entire job categories and housing becoming an endless rent sentence, get a job and save has turned into a trap that sounds polite. This is not financial advice. This is financial education, the kind that makes you uncomfortable because it treats money like what it really is: power, incentives, and control. So today I want to show you a mechanism businesses use to scale without hiring your way into bankruptcy. It is built around one idea that sounds almost childish until you see the math. You don't just sell products. You redesign ownership and profit so the people doing the selling feel like the owners. You will hear a model that gets called shady by people who don't understand business incentives. You will hear why it often gets copied into scams by people who do understand incentives but only care about themselves. And you will learn how, in 2026, the same incentive logic is playing out in unexpected places like AI staffing, creator income, insurance pricing, and even the way institutional investors take over crypto. You will also get one hard takeaway at the end. If you want financial freedom, you have to stop chasing linear income and start demanding upside that comes from ownership or from systems that scale beyond your labor. But first, let's talk about the lie you have been living inside. Picture a nurse in her early 30s, let's call her David, because everyone assumes the story is always about the men who should have known better. David works nights, he clocks in, he does his job, he follows the plan, he buys groceries, pays rent, and tries to make the numbers work. Since 2019, the average American's purchasing power has been hammered by inflation while wages lag behind. Real wages rose in some months and fell in others, but the trend is brutal. The things you need cost more and more, and your paycheck does not scale with the same speed. Now imagine the nurse tries to do the smart thing. She takes a side job, she learns a skill, she watches videos about starting small. She tells herself the classic story: build experience, then earn more, then one day you will breathe. Then 2026 happens. A clinic hires AI-driven scheduling and automated triage. A big chunk of administrative work disappears. A few roles get reclassified, and suddenly David's overtime becomes optional, not guaranteed. Meanwhile, her landlord raises rent again because the local insurance market has collapsed in some areas, and landlords pass risk costs straight onto tenants. It is not one villain. It is a system that routes cost and volatility to the person with the weakest bargaining power. So what does David do? She looks for a way to make money that does not depend on being employed by someone else who can cut her hours with one decision. She hears about something called franchising, partnership distribution, brand-based networks. In some circles, it is praised as entrepreneurship. In other circles, it is attacked as fraud. And here is where the truth gets ugly. Both reactions can be partially right. The incentive model can be legitimate, and it can also be exploited. The difference is not the name. The difference is the structure. Let's begin with the version that looks normal. The version nearly everyone understands. The one you have probably seen 1,000 times in stores, kiosks, and sales floors. In the old model, a store hires a small sales team. They pay a base salary plus a commission. The base salary protects the company from the chaos of unemployment risk, and the commission motivates the employees to sell. It sounds fair because the employee can earn more when performance improves. But the hidden problem is simple. When you pay a base salary, you are paying for time, not for ownership. The employees still think like employees. Let's use the math from a typical scenario. Suppose one employee brings in $20,000 a month in revenue. The store pays a base of $1,000 plus 5% commission. 5% of $20,000 is $1,000. So the employee makes $2,000 total. If the store has 4 employees, the store must pay at least $4,000 in base salary every month. That cost is real even if sales stall. Now ask yourself a cold question: who bears the risk when sales fall? In this model, the owner does. That is why owners do not hire endlessly. They hire limited headcount because every extra employee is another fixed cost. And because the employee is not an owner, their effort can drop when the owner is not physically present. In many stores, sales dip when the manager goes on vacation. You see it everywhere because the incentive alignment is incomplete. Your brain calls it work ethic, but the numbers call it alignment failure. Employees treat the business like a job because they are paid like a job. They do not feel responsible for outcomes. They do not feel like their decisions build a future. They do not feel like failure hurts them directly. They feel like someone else owns the downside. This is why the model rarely scales without a boss hovering. The store becomes fragile. The owner becomes the bottleneck. The company grows only as fast as the owner can manage. And here is the part that hits harder in 2026. As AI improves and automation reduces the cost of generating outputs, companies can cut human roles that do not produce measurable results. If your income is tied to being an employee with a schedule, your bargaining power shrinks. If the incentives inside your work do not scale with performance, you end up competing against machines and against other humans who accept lower pay. So the first escalation is not a marketing trick. It is an incentive redesign. In the improved model, the store removes the base salary. It increases the commission and shifts risk onto the employee in exchange for upside. This is often called a commission-heavy or insurance-style model. The store does not pay $1,000 just to be at work. It pays when revenue arrives. If the employee still brings in $20,000 a month in revenue, the commission might rise from 5% to 15%. 15% of $20,000 is $3,000. Now the employee's expected upside is higher, and the store can tolerate hiring more people because there is no fixed payroll per person. This forces a psychological shift. Employees cannot rely on the base to cover slow months. They have to actively sell. They have to build momentum. They have to treat the role like a mini business, even though they do not own the asset. And yes, some employees will hate it at first, because they were counting on predictable pay to survive. But the people who succeed in this model are not just better, they are the ones willing to accept performance-based compensation because they understand what we all pretend not to understand. Money is not charity. Money is a scoreboard. Now here is where it gets really interesting, because the second escalation still doesn't fully solve the core problem. Employees can still leave when they feel like it. They can still burn out. They can still underperform when the store lacks structure. The owner still benefits from their labor but does not truly release operational control. So the next upgrade is the one people argue about online with too much emotion and not enough math. The upgrade is profit sharing through something close to an equity or partnership system. This is where many people slap the label fraud onto it, because it resembles the surface-level language of multi-level recruitment. But you need to separate the idea from the execution. A legitimate partnership model is not about collecting money and disappearing. It is about distributing upside to people who can grow the system and accepting that growth comes from multi-person execution, not from the owner's personal labor. So in a partnership model, the store turns into a network where salespeople become partners, not just sales staff. They may pay an entry fee, sometimes called a franchise fee, partner fee, or membership fee. The logic behind it is brutal. If you want control over the business's distribution channel, you contribute capital. You also accept risk. And because you have invested, you are motivated to make the system succeed. In the example from the business logic, someone pays $5,000 to join as a partner. Their reward is not just a higher commission, it is a better cost structure, such as wholesale pricing or preferential margins. Here is the math that makes people either nod or rage depending on how they were taught to think. Suppose, under the old commission structure, an employee earns 15% commission and the pricing works out such that they make around $2,000 to $3,000 on $20,000 of revenue. Under the partnership system, the partner's cost might be $10,000 for the inventory that sells at $20,000. The difference is $10,000 of margin before expenses, so the partner looks at the opportunity and says, if I hit the number, I keep far more. That is incentive alignment. It is also why the partner is willing to recruit, train, and manage other people, because their success is not just their paycheck, it is their investment's return. And here is the part that sounds unbelievable until you see how scalable it is for the owner. When partners enter and pay $5,000 each, the business receives immediate cash. That cash funds marketing, hiring, and expansion. Meanwhile, the owner's product cost might be $5,000 per unit or per allocation, while partners receive wholesale at $10,000. The owner profits from the spread and also profits from the ongoing system expansion. The business does not need to pay massive fixed salaries to grow. It grows by converting sales activity into partner capital and partner management. That is why some people call it an ownership engine. That is also why some people call it shady, because the same structure can be used to extract fees without creating real value for customers. So in 2026, your job is not to trust a label, your job is to judge the incentives. Ask what happens if the product does not sell. In a legitimate partnership franchise, the partner still has inventory risk and business risk, but the system has infrastructure for support, training, logistics, and compliance. In a scam, the system depends on constant recruitment of new entrants to keep revenue flowing. In a scam, the product might be low quality or overpriced relative to real market demand, and the real money comes from fees and from recruiting. Now let's connect this to why this matters to you right now, not because you want skincare magic, but because you are living inside an economic incentive crisis. In 2026, AI eliminates many middle-skill jobs faster than anyone in the average household expected. Not because AI is perfect, but because companies can automate parts of work that used to be handled by humans with salaries, and when a job becomes partially automated, companies cut costs. They do not cut profit, they cut labor. Your employer can redesign your role into something less paid, more monitored, and more replaceable. At the same time, housing affordability keeps breaking the social contract across the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia. Wages do not catch up to home prices. Renting becomes a long-term plan, not a temporary solution. And climate-driven disruptions add another layer. Insurance premiums spike, some neighborhoods become uninsurable, migration costs rise, and suddenly rent is not just rent, it is a risk transfer mechanism. So you are not just trying to make more money, you are trying to build resilience in a world that strips resilience from employees. That leads to a terrifying conclusion. If your financial plan is based on employment income staying stable, you are relying on a system that has already started breaking. And here is where the partnership model's logic can appeal to people who are tired of being told to learn to code in 2020 style advice. Because now AI codes better than many humans, it drafts contracts faster, it produces marketing creatives at scale, it generates customer service responses. If you are building a future by selling your labor to an economy that is increasingly automated, your advantage shrinks. So you either pivot into ownership like upside, or you accept that your income will be squeezed. But we are not done. We need to escalate one more step, because there is a reason people keep telling stories about businesses that break free from the owner's schedule. In the next upgrade, partnerships do not just receive commission or wholesale access, they become mini operating nodes with their own management responsibilities. The system turns into a layered distribution channel. One way to express this is tiered partnering. In the logic described, someone pays $5,000 to become a partner, then later can upgrade to a higher tier, paying $10,000. The reward might be better wholesale pricing. For example, a partner at the first tier might receive inventory at $10,000 cost when the owner's wholesale base cost is $5,000. When upgraded to the second tier, the partner might receive inventory at $6,000, increasing margin by $4,000 per unit or per sales allocation. Now that sounds like a small change, but with scaling it becomes enormous, and it shifts behavior again. When partners can make more margin at higher tiers, they become motivated to recruit and manage teams that can hit consistent volume. The system is now designed to grow leadership internally, but the owner still asks one question. If the partners are making more, where does the owner's profit come from? In this structure, the owner's profit comes from the overall system spread and from the management of the network. When the network becomes large, the owner does not rely on retail sales for survival. The owner relies on the cumulative margins across many partner teams and across many tiers. This is the same incentive logic that drives modern franchising and multi-location growth in real companies, even when they do not advertise it as dark. The business just hides the math behind branding and operational support. Now here is where we connect to your 2026 reality again, because the idea of tiered incentive networks now shows up everywhere. Look at the creator economy. People are told to make passive income by posting videos. But in 2026, most creators earn $0 or near it. The top few monetize attention while everyone else provides free labor to platforms that profit from ads and subscriptions. Many creators do not receive ownership of the audience or ownership of the distribution. They are contractors in a system that keeps them replaceable. The same thing happened in many gig economy roles. You were told you were an independent operator, but the platform owns the infrastructure, controls the fees, and can throttle your access with algorithm changes. Your upside is limited. Your risk is high. A tiered franchise-like model is a different structure. It can grant partners more upside and more autonomy because their incentives align with volume. But again, it can also be abused. So your job is to watch for one red flag. Does the company profit mainly from helping customers buy a product, or does it mainly profit from charging entrants for access? That is the line. Now let's talk about money and ownership in a world where interest rates and inflation have trained everyone to be paranoid. In 2022 and 2023, the Fed raised interest rates sharply. By 2024 and 2025, rates may have eased or stabilized, but the damage remains. Real purchasing power does not magically return because the headline inflation number drops. Rent resets, food costs stay elevated, insurance keeps rising, and credit card and auto loan rates take longer to fall for normal people. Meanwhile, the stock market can rally because liquidity improves and large companies refinance. But your rent does not refinance. Your healthcare costs do not refinance. Your groceries do not refinance. The disconnect feels like the economy is broken because it is broken in a predictable way. Capital flows to assets while wages lag. In this kind of environment, someone selling you a system that promises financial freedom needs to be judged by one metric. Does it create a path toward ownership or toward scalable income that is not dependent on employment? Some partnership models can create that by converting labor into capital participation, like equity-like shares. In the example logic, there is an upgrade that resembles community crowdfunding. Instead of one person funding store expansion, the partners and investors pool funds. A governing shareholder retains decision control, such as holding 35% of equity while investors hold 65% through the pooled structure. Then the money funds opening new locations. Partners sell products with improved margins, and the profit distribution flows both from sales margins and from equity returns tied to investment. If this is real and well run, the investors are not just paying to join, they are funding expansion that produces cash flow. But if the system is fake, the pooled funds become a cash extraction mechanism.
Smazy de printing curves at his matism white guffin and his sin cause his words. As crents and so was best passage talks because if not at tonics and as a time the rest of the weather credit got out the worst over acts and went to their witness. And spreaded one is to before they returned to a tenant. But stringently one is so sick of it has framed stage or race domins and I'm also the really cups phenomenon shooks. As a man if he's get tension sitting now and say give it part two as a mess and as a bug punish it or this contract and stirring the smoke.
If a company holds regular meetings, sets training expectations, maintains consistent brand standards, and creates a shared operational language, partners feel part of a mission rather than a disposable sales channel. Governance is the hard version.